Adams Archive.
Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome to the Adams Archive. My name is Austin Adams, and thank you so much for listening today. On today's episode, we have a lot to catch up on. There's been some wild stuff that's happened over the last week and a half or 2 weeks since our previous episode, and I'll catch you up on all of it, at least all of it that I'm interested in. And the very first thing I'm interested in this week is going to be that there was a Senator Markwayne Mullins, who actually challenged a Teamster boss to a fist fight on a Senate hearing of the Senate floor during a hearing. And personally, I think this should probably happen more often as it did a long time ago. So we'll dive into what actually happened in that exchange, the bad blood between this senator and the Teamster boss, as well as diving into Markwayne Mullins' previous history, because this man was actually a MMA fighter. So probably not the guy that you would want to mess with if you were some fat, bald old dude like this Teamster boss was. So my money is on Senator Mullins. That's all I got to say. So we'll dive into that. We'll actually break down some of his MMA fights and dive deeper into the bad blood, because it goes back months and months ago where this exchange originally happened that got brought to the Senate floor just a couple days ago. After we address that, we will also jump into the next topic, which is going to be that there is a overwhelming, well, and I guess, yeah, the next article after that, we'll have a few small, quick ones. First of all, apparently some people think that white people that are generated by AI look more real than photographs. So there was basically this statistical study that showed that if people were generated, like if there was images generated by AI and they were white, according to white people, it was harder to decide who was real and who was AI, which is interesting. So we'll talk about that and how they tried to spin this into somehow AI's now racist, I guess. Anyways, after that, we will dive into another article, which is all about the majority of Americans taking notice in the rise of tipflation across industries. And it's all about when you go to every single place ever now, whether they give you service or not, or you're just paying for gas, it seems like everybody's asking you for a tip, asking you for a handout. I don't think that's how this works, and it drives me nuts. So we'll talk about that. After that, we will go into the police arresting the hockey player. I believe this was in the ECHL, not the East Coast Hockey League, but the European League, I believe. We talked about it on our last podcast, but they actually arrested the guy who ended up having his skate hit the guy's throat and ended up in the death of Adam Johnson. So we will discuss that, and I still hold true to my thoughts on that. So I don't believe that was rightful for them to do so. There was a California team who was suspended from school for wearing the black paint on his face during a football game, which everybody all knows what I'm talking about, right under your eyes. Was suspended from school for wearing that because the principal says he was wearing blackface. After that, we will dive into some of the conversation that was had between Elon Musk and Lex Fridman, including his thoughts on the Israel and Hamas war, leading us into a conversation about a poll that was done around people's support or lack thereof of what is happening by Israel. Then we'll jump into a discussion of between Theo Von and Dana White. So all of that and more. And at the very end, I have a little interesting tidbit about the Interstellar movie that I thought was interesting. Let's jump into it. But first, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave a 5-star review. I appreciate you being here from the bottom of my heart. I love, love, love doing this for you guys. And I don't ask for much. I don't even give you advertisements. I'm making nothing off of this conversation right now other than the joy of knowing that you're about to hit that subscribe button. You're about to leave a 5-star review, and I'll even tell you a story about how I was chased down, harassed after being noticed by some liberal in a bar recently, last night to be exact. And we'll talk about that. So, all of that and more, hit the 5-star review button, subscribe. That's all I got. And let's jump into it.
The Adams Archive.
All right. So the very first thing that we're going to talk about today is that there was a senator who challenged a Teamster boss to a fist fight on the Senate floor, only to be stopped by the one and only Bernie Sanders. Who would have thought that that man would be the voice of reason? But let's go ahead and watch this clip, and then I will give my opinion on what happened, because you probably know my stance. I think they should have fought it out. But first, for you here is the article. Let's go ahead, or the video, actually. Let's go ahead and take a look and watch this clip together. And here we go. So actually, I'll read you a little bit about the article, because Bernie Sanders is going off here in the background. But it says that a congressional hearing devolved into an angry confrontation between senator and a witness on Tuesday after Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma challenged Sean O'Brien, the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, otherwise known as unionized mob boss, to stand your butt up and settle ongoing differences right there in the room. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, the chairman of the Senate panel that was holding the hearing, yielded at Mullin to sit down as he challenged O'Brien to a fight. Mullin had stood up from his seat at the dais and appeared to start taking his ring off. Might be a good move to leave it on, actually. Cut him up a little bit. This is the time, this is the place, Mullin told O'Brien after reading a series of critical tweets O'Brien had sent out about him in the past. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults and we can finish it right here. And here is the video for you.
It's quite different. But after you left here, you got pretty excited about the keyboard. In fact, you tweeted at me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And let me read what the last one said. It said, greedy CEO who pretends like he's self-made. Sir, I wish you was in the truck with me when I was building my plumbing company. Myself and my wife was running the office, because I sure remember working pretty hard and long hours. Pretends like he's self-made. What a clown. Fraud. Always has been, always will be. Quit the tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Any place, any time, cowboy. Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big
No,
guy.
no, stop it.
Is that your solution every
Hold it. No, sit down. Sit down.
Look at you.
You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
All right.
Can I respond, Mr.
Hold
Chairman?
it. Hold it. If
Hold
we
on.
can't, no,
This is
I have
what
the
he
mic.
said.
I'm sorry.
This is
Hold
what
it.
he said.
You'll have your time.
Okay.
Can I respond?
Oh, no, you can't. This is a hearing.
Voice of reason.
And God knows the American people have enough of contempt for Congress. Let's not
I don't
make
like
it worse.
thugs and bullies.
You have,
And that's
you
what-
have
I don't
the
like
mic.
you, because you
Hold
just
it.
described yourself.
Hold it. You have the mic.
Yeah.
You have time.
All right.
Make your statement.
Then let's do this, because I did challenge you and I accepted your challenge, and you went quiet.
No, I didn't go quiet.
Hold on.
No,
You
hold-
challenged me to a cage match,
No,
acting like a
sir.
12-year-old schoolyard
Hold it.
bully.
Excuse
Sir,
me.
hold on.
Hold it. No, excuse me. I have the
I
mic.
will say exactly.
Senator
what he
Mullin,
said.
I have the mic. You have questions on any economic issues, anything that said, go for it. We're not here to talk about physical abuse.
You brought.
We're not
him
talking
in.
about, of course I
And,
did.
and let me
He's-
let me show you his hearing, because I want to expose this thug to who he is. And
Could you not point at me? That's disrespectful.
All right.
I don't care about respecting you at all. I respect
don't
people
respect
that I
you at all.
respect. So
All right, hold it.
let me
Hold it. No,
You're one of
no,
100
hold it.
of the most
Hold
elite
it,
people
please.
acted.
Please. All right? This is excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
This is a hearing to discuss economic issues. All right? If you have questions for Mr. O'Brien or anybody else on what he has said, go for it.
I mean-
But we're not here to talk about fights or anything else.
I'm quoting exactly what he said.
You can
and
say
this
what
is-
you want,
This is
but-
your witness
This
you
is
brought.
my
And let me.
witness.
I'm exposing him.
You can
as a
talk
person
anything you
who he
want.
is. So in
But no fight-
2013,
Nope.
in 2013, O'Brien was suspended by the Teamsters for intimidating your own members. In
Hmm.
2014, you were part of, what would you say, organizing the harassment and intimidation of the top shelf crew.
Chef, not chef.
Top chef, okay. And then, and I think in the reports they said sexual, racist, and homophobic slurs and death threats. 14 tires were sliced, and 5 Teamsters were arrested. And you said, well, I had nothing to do with it. But however, in that same statement, you said, but if I get called to testify, I'll plead the fifth. This is the witness you brought in here. In 2017, you were removed as lead negotiator by then President Hoffa for UPS for your actions. And then in 22, when this guy was elected, what he said after he got elected was he wanted to bring the mob mentality back to the Teamsters. This is your guy.
And you're obviously going to give him a chance to respond to your questions.
Absolutely, because this is my question. Because you called me out. I didn't call you out.
Yeah, you did.
You said anytime, any place.
Let's get the record
Okay.
straight.
Ms. Hold it, no.
Hold on.
Senator Mullen, do you have a question for the witness?
Yeah. I think
Okay,
that's what I'm getting
let's
at.
hear it.
There you go. Absolutely hilarious that's what just went on. But honestly, I like it. I think that we should probably have more fist fights in the Senate. Just like if you go back 100 years, 150 years ago, senators were literally dueling in the streets, killing each other. Go back and look at Andrew Jackson. How many duels did that man win? How many fist fights did he get in for arguing about politics, which it should be passionate like that, right? So if this mob's boss, this Teamster boss wants to run his mouth on Twitter and then all of a sudden hide behind Bernie Sanders when this guy actually wants to do something about it face to face, that's what we call a coward. Right? You want to run your mouth until you're face to face with somebody. Maybe just don't run your mouth, right? If you're not the big tough guy that you think you are, maybe don't say anything to somebody who you know nothing about, because what it turned out is that this man was actually an ex-MMA fighter. And you're really not an ex-MMA fighter. You know, to me, is like you still can fight. Maybe you don't actively engage because the guy's probably like 45, 50 maybe. But he's an MMA fighter. Right? You see a little bit collarier on this senator, right? So I think this is awesome. I think there should be more fist fights in Senate. I think that the reason that it's shaped like a circle is for everybody to watch as 2 senators fist fight, or a senator and a Teamster mob boss who are talking shit on Twitter get together face to face and actually do something about it. Because imagine how much less shit would be talked on Twitter if you had more people like Senator Mullins out there willing to actually confront people when they're seeing them face to face. So, speaking of, I'll take a little sidetrack here. Speaking of seeing people face to face, last night, I was at a business networking event. I do have a life outside of this podcast, guys. I do have a family and children to feed. So I am in a professional environment. And in that professional environment, I have to go out and speak to people and promote my business and build the business and have connections with other people. Now, I don't talk about my business very much here because I don't see much of a need to yet. But in this case, I was walking around doing some networking at a nice bar. I had a beer in my hand, and all of a sudden I have this guy out of nowhere go, "Austin Adams, the far-right podcaster, didn't expect to see you here. Why are you here, Austin? This is a blue state. You don't belong here. You hate gay people. You hate transgenders. You don't agree with this and that," and just straight up harassing me loudly, belligerently drunk man who could barely string a sentence together, let alone formulate a proper argument to back up his criticisms of my alleged positions, which he seemed to have wrong more than right, but he also seemed to have followed my stuff for a fairly long time, which is really interesting. If you ever see me out and about, come say hi. I'll shake your hand. I'd love to talk to people. I've had several people come up to me and notice me just walking around, whether it's an event or, I had somebody come up to me and I talked to for a long time at Jordan Peterson. There's some, I love interacting with you guys. So if you want to get belligerent and you don't like me, that's fine too. Cause guess what, bitch? Just like Senator Mullins, I ain't scared. Come up and say hi. Tell me what you disagree with, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. So anyways, this guy comes up to me, belligerently drunk, starts yelling across this bar at a nice bar, at a nice, like, well put together networking event. And so this guy follows me around the bar because I just go, are you here for business or are you here for politics? I'm confused. And just tried to walk away from the guy, and he follows me, and keeps yelling belligerent shit at me. And so finally I set my beer down and I just turned and faced him because this guy wasn't going anywhere, and I obviously wasn't in any physical danger with this belligerent, out of shape older man. So I put my beer down and I face the guy and I go, okay, what do you want to talk about, man? What is it? What do you think about my positions since you know them so well? First of all, he starts off with the fact that I hate gay people and don't think gay people should get married. I don't agree with gay marriage, which is not my opinion. I think gay people should be able to do whatever they want. I think they should get married. I think that the marriage that we have today is essentially a tax write-off, and they should be able to have just as much of a tax write-off depending on their sexual orientation as anybody else. And honestly, the gays are the homies now. We you have the trans agenda that I think everybody, whether you're straight or gay, can agree with is the problem, not sexuality, right? And this is, you look at you go into animalistic parallels, right? Animal kingdoms, and you look at, okay, there's absolutely homosexual tendencies within the animal kingdom, but I don't think you see anywhere a hippopotamus throwing on a tutu and putting lipstick on its face and calling itself a rhino. I don't think that's directly comparable, but essentially that's what it's doing, right? So, to me, the gay agenda, the gay whatever, I don't care. Do what you want to do. I totally think that you should have every right that straight people have. I don't think there should be any. And I think basically, literally everybody agrees with that, unless you're a super evangelical, very, very right conservative, hyper old school conservative. I think basically everybody agrees that gay people should be able to do whatever they want, whenever they want, as long as it's not shoving your education about sexual tendencies down my child's throat in school, which you haven't done at all. So nobody's saying shit about that. Then he goes into about the trans agenda. Right? He starts talking about, oh, you hate trans people. And again, how many times will I say this? I don't hate trans people. I, in fact, think there's probably a certain portion of trans people that I'm empathetic to. I think it's a obvious mental illness that I couldn't imagine dealing with, where you feel stuck in this body that isn't yours. And again, I think that's maybe a 30-20% of, it probably gets smaller and smaller percentages of the day that actually have legitimate gender dysphoria, where they live in the wrong body according to them. And I can't imagine being stuck in that frame of mind. And I'm sure it's mental torture every day to wake up thinking that you should be this when you're that. I'm empathetic to that. But I also think that they're being taken advantage of for medical pharmaceutical profits. I also think that, we talk about the 20% of actually having gender dysphoria. I think there's about 80, 70, I don't know, I'm throwing fucking numbers out there for you guys. But I do think that there's a larger percentage than not that is doing it for attention. That is doing it because it's the new thing. It makes them important. It gives them a reason to wake up every day and be better than you. That makes them feel special on the inside. And that I have no empathy for you. I don't hate you. I don't have a reason to hate you, but I don't have empathy for you. And then I think there's a smaller subsection of that that's looking for attention, and then also trying to peddle a pedophilia agenda down the throat of children, which is, maybe it's not the majority of that percentage, but who knows, but we see it consistently every day. You see a new thing come out about that. So yeah, those are the people I don't like, is the people who think that you should shove the trans agenda, hypersexualization of children down the throats of young children at a very early age. At really any age. You shouldn't talk to my child about sexual orientation or gender binary or this or that or how to give a blowjob at all. Because guess what? That makes you a pedophile creep. And I don't like pedophile creeps. Whether you think you're a boy and you're a girl, or you think that you're a rhinoceros when you're a hippopotamus. I just did that's where I stand on the trans agenda. So let's be very clear on that. And then next he gets into, all these other things that he just assumes my position on. And I've said this before. I'm much more when it comes to political affiliation, probably more on the side of libertarian than I am on the side of, extreme conservatism. And I think that the government is essentially bad at almost everything that it does. And the more that you give the government, the more that they're going to want to take. And that most of the government shouldn't exist. That's my position. But with that comes not intervening in people's lives, including gay people, including, I just don't think the government should have their hand in things that aren't about eliminating the golden or, people from trespassing on other people's body and property. That's essentially where I stand. Everything else is inflated. There should be some social programs for people who are disabled. There should be some social programs for people who make a lower income, who are intellectually incapable of earning a better living. I think there's some of that to be had. But I don't think that the government is essentially very good at anything that it's ever done, almost ever as a whole. And I think it's comprised of traditionally and historically corrupt individuals who are very bad at what they do and only align their positions with where the money that funded them came from. So it's a flawed system to begin with. So that doesn't really put me on the side of extreme far right, it's just not where I land. And if you think that, you probably just don't listen enough. And, if you think that and this is the thing too, because we've seen my opposing opinions several times irk people who think I am this or I am that. And it's like, I am me. I have my own opinions on basically every topic. I don't align with a political affiliation in the way that I view most things as non-political. I don't think trans is a political issue. Doesn't have to do with the government or politics. It's a social issue, and it's a dangerous one. And it's a part of this woke mind virus that we'll listen to Elon Musk talk about in a little bit. And I don't think that's a political affiliation to have a problem with the mind virus that is woke ideology, which is permeating across the entire consciousness of American culture, which is killing the once great nation that we were. That's where I stand on that. So anyways, this guy follows me around and all of a sudden, I'm not being hyper aggressive back. And I just ask him, are you here for business or are you here for politics? Do you actually know my positions or are you assuming? Because I think you're wrong on this. I don't think that. I do think this. Something we talked about abortion. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I don't think that I think the government should, because I said I'm more libertarian than I am traditional conservative. And he goes, oh, well, then you must think that, you probably voted this on that about abortion. And, I said, I think that the government should have a place in stopping the ending of human life. And I do believe that a baby in the womb is a baby and is of value and shouldn't be murdered senselessly for your own, statistically speaking, comfort or lack of maturity. Again, that's my position. So anyways, that was and by the end of this conversation, this drunk man standing next to me, thinking he was going to come, I don't know what he was thinking he was going to do, demean me personally for having opinions and sharing them and people finding value in them. Eventually was like, hey, you know what? I actually kind of like you. I'm sorry that I came up to you and did this and that. And you seem like a nice guy. And, maybe you'll find that too if you come up to me, whether you like me or not. But always come up and say hi. Would love to talk to you guys if you ever see me out and about. But anyways, the next part of this topic on Senator Mullins is that this feud goes back several months. So let's see if we can find the video here, because this feud goes back all the way to a time where the original contact that they had together, and give me a second because I'm delaying this because my connection with my other screen wasn't working properly. There we go. So what essentially happened 4 months prior to this, there was a video that came out. But after this engagement, so let's watch this one first, and then we'll go back to that. After this engagement, the news crew caught up to him and had some questions for him, in which they asked him about this engagement and what his thoughts were on it. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Here's the video.
Well, you should probably ask him that. I mean, he's the one that kept tweeting at us. We didn't respond until the 5th tweet, and when he said any place or any time, any place, you know, where to find me, cowboy, I thought, well, this is the time, this is the place, and you don't do that in Oklahoma. You don't run your mouth unless you want to answer the call.
Well, that might be the question. Was that the place? Is a Senate hearing the right place to challenge someone to a physical confrontation?
Well, I'd already challenged him to September 30th. He could have done it then for charity. I said April. They have the what's called the Smoking Guns charity for the firefighters and police force. We could have done it then. I've been happy to, but he said stand up, and so I stood up.
Yeah, but what about, I mean, just the idea that fighting as a way to solve a problem, is that kind of, are you concerned that
Yes.
that's the way the conversation is happening here on Capitol Hill?
People's been fighting for a long time. I mean, go back to the 1800s. They used to have canings. It was legal to do duels. If you have a difference, you have a difference. I didn't start it. I didn't tweet at him. I didn't go after him. I have no beef with the guy. I mean, I don't even know the last time I've gotten a street fight. I used to get paid to fight. I'm not looking. I mean, what victory is it for me to beat up O'Brien? That would be a shock, right? But he said it. And I just simply responded. If he wants to call it off and we just go have a cup of coffee, fine, let's sit down and have a cup of coffee. I have no hard feelings. It's not personal to me. He just challenged me, and I accepted the challenge.
Do you regret this moment at all?
You should probably ask him. I mean, he's the one that said it. I don't regret asking him. You know, he said anytime, any place. So.
And has leadership talked to you at all about this?
No, not at all.
Have you done any outreach to
Sorry.
him at all, or has he reached out to you, O'Brien meaning?
No.
Reached out to you afterwards?
No, not. You know, I ended it and said, if you want to end it here, that's fine. You want to sit down and have a cup of coffee, I'll sit down and have a cup of coffee. It's not personal to me, guys. This is nothing personal. It's just he made the challenge, and I accepted it. It's just that simple.
What about just the general tension right now on Capitol Hill? Do you feel as though there's more angst than there has been at other times, and is it preventing you from getting things done?
I don't, you know, I can only speak for my time here, right? Ever since I've been here, there's always been a little bit of tension. This is a total separate issue. You know, this doesn't have to do with policy. This doesn't have to do with politics. This had to do with the guy calling me out, and I simply responded to it. So I don't think the two are really comparable. This has nothing to do with me against unions either. I have nothing against unions. I made that very clear at the end of the hearing. I have nothing against unions. A lot of good friends and family are union members. This has to do with just his thug mentality. I mean, look at his background. Look at his history. The guy has a history of this constantly. I mean, he was the one after he became president. He was the one to bring back the mob mentality. What the heck is a mob mentality? And then you're going to bring that mob mentality to me? Okay, well, you can't run your mouth against me. I'm just not that guy. If you want to run your mouth, then we can settle it a different way. But you don't.
Literally, if you were to run your mouth to anybody in politics at all, this was the wrong guy to run your mouth to. A former pro MMA fighter and Oklahoma State wrestler. Like, literally the worst person. You could have thrown a dart at the board and probably fought 90% of these old hacks sitting on Capitol Hill. But you picked the absolute wrong motherfucker to pick the only guy who is an ex-professional MMA fighter. So what I want to do next is just watch a little bit of one of his MMA fights, because there actually is a couple of them that is up on YouTube that I found. So let's go ahead and I will pull this up for you. But man, I totally agree. Bring it back. Bring back duels. I don't care. If you really want to be tough, I'm pretty sure there would be no Democrats left if there was still duels or fistfights in politics. They would probably just all be dead. But let's go ahead and see if we can pull this up again. And get this MMA fight pulled up for you, because I'm sure if he's from Oklahoma and he wrestled, I'm sure he's not a bad MMA fighter. So here we go. Maybe not. Here it is.
Director, I now recognize Mr. Pfluger, the gentleman from Texas, and the
That's
chair.
not what we're looking for. There was an MMA fight posted from one of his, here we go, from March, May. And it's only 3 minutes long. So something
Your FightSite.com trading cards. Get notified. notice with these high-quality, full-color trading cards.
So let's see if we can get the
Order your trading
background
cards today and get noticed.
Senator Mullins here. I think I saw it.
With these high-quality, full-color and get noticed.
Mark Mullins versus Logan Griffin. Somebody just went for a takedown, bad shot immediately to the guillotine. Guy on the bottom is holding his beating a little bit too long. It looks like he's like this more, which is just not getting wrapped around the backside of somebody's shoulder, and then have your other hand on the wrist and wrap it around the forearm. And it can actually create a terrible spinal fracture on the shoulder if it's not properly. But gets out of that. Again, I'm not sure which one's which here. It's just mostly not the best organizational videography. But I would assume the guy on top is probably safe to assume. They're up against the cage. Like he's about to take his back. Oh no, he's in full mount. And still looking for what looks like that Kimura. Transitions as the guy tries to get up to his back a little bit. Arm stuck behind his hip. But flattens him out, has his back, has his arm trapped. You're pretty much done there because you can't even defend with one hand. And man, that would have just been so refreshing to watch a fist fight in Senate where, a Republican senator just demolishes a shit-talking mobster. And he's on full mount now, just raining down haymakers on this dude's face. The guy gives his back up, transitions to the back. And that's probably all she wrote right there, huh? But just dominating. And that's got to be the fight right there. Yeah, we'll talk it. As this hooks in. Yeah, that's it. And a tap. Took his back. Rear naked choke. Few shots thrown. Not sure if we can get a verification that this is actually the right guy here, but we'll assume so. But it looked like it. Looked like his wrestling was pretty decent and has the same exact name. So we'll assume. All right, moving on. Outside of this, let's talk about some other stuff, which is not nearly as interesting or exciting as watching a senator beat up a mob boss on the Senate floor. But hey, there's not too much that you can do to get that. Looks like Mark Wayne Mullins is really enjoying this guy's ground game. Yeah, a lot of people have been seeing that. Let's see. It looks like Mark Wayne Mullins is really enjoying this guy's ground game. The big question is 9 months after this fight, who is going to get custody of the baby? What? I'm so confused. Interesting. So it was him who it looks like. Yeah, he was actually the loser here. So his wrestling didn't look all that good for coming out of Oklahoma. If somebody takes your back so easily and you don't really have much of an answer to it. But anyways, I digress. Either way, he's still beating the shit out of that Teamster boss. All right. The very next article that we're going to discuss here is going to be that if you didn't know, AI is now racist, according to some news articles who claim so after white people seem to be able to get more confused by pictures of people who are AI thinking they're real more than they think real white people are real. And where this gets pretty funny is that this was white on white racism. Not even, they're saying by definition, because white people are confused by other white people, that the language learning models, the AI algorithms, are biased because they're being fed more white people photos than they are being fed other races. So let's read this article. It comes from Popular Science, and it says, as technology evolves, AI-generated images of human faces are becoming increasingly indistinguishable from real photos. But our ability to separate the real from the artificial may come down to a personal biases, both our own as well as that of AI's underlying algorithms. According to a new study recently published in the Journal of Psychological Science, certain humans may misidentify AI-generated white faces as real more often than they can accurately identify actual photos of Caucasians. More specifically, it's white people who can't distinguish between real and AI-generated white faces. In a series of trials conducted by researchers collaborating across universities in Australia, the Netherlands, and the UK, 124 white adults were tasked with classifying a series of faces as artificial or real, then rating their confidence for each decision on a 100-point scale. The team decided to match white participants with Caucasian image examples in an attempt to mitigate potential own racial or race recognition bias, the tendency for racial and cultural populations to more poorly remember unfamiliar faces from different demographics. And then remarkably, white AI faces can convincingly pass as more real than human faces. And people did not realize they are being fooled, researchers write in their paper. This was in no slim margin either. Participants mistakenly classified a full 66% of AI images as photographed humans, versus barely half as many as the real photos. Meanwhile, the same white participants' ability to discern real from artificial people of color was roughly 50-50. In a second experiment, 610 participants. You could also say, it's like, how do you take this and go, oh, AI is racist? Because you could also say that white people are just bad at distinguishing what's real and not real, in which case, now you're the racist one. How's that for the Uno reverse card? In a second experiment, 610 participants rated the same images using 14 attributes contributing to what made them look human without knowing some photos were fake. Of those attributes, the face's proportionality, familiarity, memorability, and the perception of lifelike eyes ranked highest for test subjects. They have a beautiful little graph here. His qualitative, it says the team dubbed this newly identified tendency to overly misattribute artificially generated faces, specifically white faces, as AI hyperrealism. The stark statistical differences are believed to stem from well-documented algorithmic biases within AI development. AI systems are trained on far more white subjects than POCs. According to who? Leading to a greater ability to both generate convincing white faces as well as accurately identify them using facial recognition techniques. This disparity ramifications can cripple through countless scientific, social, and psychological situations, from identity theft to racial profiling to basic privacy concerns. Our results explain why AI hyperrealism occurs and shows that not all AI faces appear equally realistic, with implications for proliferating social bias and for public misidentification of AI. The team writes in their paper, adding that the AI hyperrealism phenomenon implies there must be some visual differences between AI and human faces, which people misinterpret. It says, it's worth noting that the new study's test pool was both small and extremely limited. It's worth noting that everything that we just wrote about really has no scientific basis, and extremely limited, and some research is undoubtedly necessary to further understand the extent and effects of such biases. Interesting. So AI is racist because what? Because it's generating more real white faces according to white people. Because there's no grading system other than this 100 or 60 whatever people that they just had take this survey. But now all of a sudden AI is racist. Who would have thought? Although when working out is, when working out is a sign of white nationalism, and eating healthy is now also classified as you being a racist or whatever, I guess it's no surprise. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about is that that's something that, you probably heard about, is they all look alike. This comes from a Forbes article. It's called The Other Race Effect, where people who are white, or people who are Indian, or people who are black or Hispanic or whatever, have a much easier time distinguishing the differentiation between somebody of their own race than other races. So that's actually contradictory to what you would kind of expect here, where you would think that, and I wonder if they did, how well will white people rate other colors, other races, right? And vice versa, right? Did they only do white with white people and black with black people and Hispanics with Hispanic people and Mexicans with Mexicans and Indians? I don't know. They really gave us very little information to go off scientifically. But I digress. All right. The very next article that we're going to discuss here is going to be about, oh, you know what? Let's hold that thought right there, because I appreciate you, because I know earlier when I asked you that you hit that subscribe button. I also know that you probably left a 5-star review, but I also know that maybe there's one of you out there, one of you that, unlike all of the other people who are listening to this, maybe didn't leave a 5-star review. Maybe you're the one person. And maybe you think I'm talking to you right now, because I am. I'm talking directly at you because you still haven't left a 5-star review. And it takes 5 seconds. And all you have to do is click the button, press the 5 stars. If you're on Apple Podcasts, all you do is scroll down just a little bit, hit the 5th star, and then type something nice. I don't know. Maybe act like that belligerent guy at the bar and tell me what you hate about me. But just leave you, as long as it's a 5-star review, it's cool. Right? Anyways, go ahead, leave a 5-star review. Tell me what you liked about the episode, what you like about the podcast in general. Love feedback, so anything that I can do for you guys to improve, I would be happy to. All right? And back to the thing. The next thing we're going to talk about is that majority of Americans are now taking notice to the rise of tipflation, is what this is being coined across industries. It says around 7 in 10 U.S. adults say tipping is expected in more places today than it was 5 years ago. And I completely agree. If you are in a regular business establishment, if you are not actively serving me, nothing drives me crazier is when you flip around your little card reader and you go, hey, could you just tap one of those buttons right there. And it says, hey, do I want to give you $7 for me swiping my own debit card and you doing your job and nothing more or nothing less, right? There's very little that you could do to make me want to tip some person that works at 7-Eleven. I don't know the last time I was in a 7-Eleven, but it's just so wild to me how confident people in restaurant industries, and this really comes down to the point of sales, and you have to understand that the psychology around this is it's just a sales technique. You know, it's like 90% of people don't even ask for the sale when it comes to sales, and that's why most people suck at selling stuff. But they just integrated into the point of sale systems a way to say, hey, do you want to give me more money than what, inflation's already caused us to increase our prices for? Right? Because who knows where this money is actually going? Is it actually being distributed amongst the staff at a coffee place? Like when all they did was make the coffee, when they're getting paid to make the coffee, right? Like I get if you're a bartender, I get if you're waiting on somebody, I get if you're, like I have a rule. Everybody basically gets 25% unless you do something terrible or you never check in on me or my drink's completely empty the whole time. And you get 40% or more if you are wiping the table in front of me, getting the crumbs off the table, like taking it that extra step that you would expect when you go to a really nice restaurant. So it's like if you are going above and beyond, you deserve a tip. If you're in a service industry and your wage depends on it. But you do not deserve a tip for literally almost any industry. You're getting paid for a service, right? There's no reason that I should have to pay you above and beyond what that amount is. And even in the service industry, tipping should go away overnight and the restaurants should just start paying fair wages to their employees, not working through this loophole to where you have to beg people to work. And again, I'm for commission. I'm for incentivizing people to do their job well when you're selling and there's a transaction. And I guess maybe that's kind of what it is. That'd be a counter argument or a devil's advocate to my position, which is that you want to incentivize your wait staff to work and be better at servicing people that are at your restaurant. And the way to do that is to allow a capitalistic form of that, which is if you give good service, then you get more money. But this probably doesn't work generally out that way. I just think that the restaurant should pay the people like everybody else in the entire world and just pay them what they should get paid for doing their job. It would make more sense to me. Anyways, nothing drives me crazier than going through a drive-through and then having them turn around their point of sale system and then look me dead in the eye like their puppy just died, hoping that I give them $3 off of or for as a tip for my $3 coffee. Like, no, thank you. But this article says, and I'll just skim it for you because we just talked about it for probably too long as it is. Americans are realizing the tips for servers aren't just for restaurants and bars anymore. Pew Research surveyed 12,000 adults almost in August 2023 using the center's nationally represented American Trends Don't Care. They feel about the practice across a variety of different services from takeout to haircuts. That's another one. If you're giving me food, you charge me for the food, not for making it. That's inherently built into the price. A broad majority of Americans say they're being asked to tip service workers more frequently than in the past. Around 7 in 10 U.S. adults say tipping is expected in more places today than it was 5 years ago, finding that tracks with anecdotal reporting has ever been dubbed tipflation. And I guess all that you're realizing is that the new point of sale systems have integrated this completely, because why wouldn't you just ask for more money? This appears to be true across demographics and is partially due to changing technology, as the adaptation of the point of sale tablets, apps, and digital kiosks have made it easier for businesses to provide customers with tip prompts and suggestions. Yeah, right. Exactly what I said. The report noted that even as Americans are increasingly asked for paid tips, relatively few have a great deal of confidence about what and how, or when and how to do so. Only about a third say it's extremely or very easy to know whether or how much to tip for different types of services. How about 0 for all of them unless you're waiting on me and bringing me beer consistently? There's also not a consensus on whether tipping is a voluntary choice or an expected obligation. Around 2 in 10 Americans say it's more of a choice, while 30% say it's more of an obligation. Ew. The largest share, 50%, say it depends on the situation, underscoring the lack of a single set of rules of expectations. Okay. More Americans oppose than favor businesses suggesting tip amounts to their customers, for example, on the bill or on a checkout screen. Another 32% neither favor nor oppose the practice. Interesting. Who cares? Let's move on. Anyways, it has some percentages as to which, what people think about certain industries asking, which, who cares? Anyways, the next thing that we're going to talk about here is going to be that... What is this one? So we talked about this last week, but the individual, let me see if I can pull his name back up. Police in England have arrested a suspect in connection with the death of former NHL player Adam Johnson, who tragically died last month when his neck was slashed by the skate of an opposing player. The South Yorkshire police released a statement Tuesday confirming an arrest in their investigation into the death of 29-year-old Johnson. The suspect, who was not identified by law enforcement, was arrested on suspicion of manslaughter. Police said the suspect remains in custody. Teammate of NHL player calls tragic deaths most traumatizing thing that I've seen in my entire life. Yeah, definitely. The former Pittsburgh Penguin forward was playing in the Challenge Cup between the Nottingham Panthers and Sheffield Steelers on October 28th when, during the second period, he suffered a fatal neck wound. Matt Petgrave collided with another player, causing a skate to go up in the air. So basically, the police said on Thursday that an autopsy revealed his official cause of death was the result of a fatal neck injury. Yeah, he bled to death on the ice, guys. You're not finding anything new. And it's exactly what these witch hunt that we saw with all of these conservative voices, including the people that I mentioned last time. The DC Dranos, the libs of TikTok, all of these, gross attempts at trying to act like you actually know what was going on in the ice. But what you find is when you look at that footage a little bit slower, you'll see that the skate basically traveled up the stick of another player as this guy was in a weird hip check position, and his leg went up the skate or the stick and hit the guy's neck, which is again, it's tragic what happened. But should this guy go to jail? No, you shouldn't go to jail. But if a cleat hit a guy's throat on accident, and again, I absolutely believe this was an accident. I don't think it was a Indomitian Sue situation where he jabbed his cleat into the guy's throat purposefully to try and hurt him. And then if that's the case, but there's just nothing that indicates intent here. There's nothing that indicates that this guy should go to jail for anything other than playing the sport that he loved and it having inherent risks. Because where does this stop now? Because guys literally fist fight each other on the ice, right? And granted, that doesn't generally end in death. And I don't think there's been a single case of that I can recall. Besides maybe one where the guy fell and hit his head in the ice like a long time ago. But to me, there's no true reason that this guy should be arrested. I completely disagree with this. I absolutely believe that this was an accident, but I just wanted to tie that loose end for you guys that guy was arrested and is currently incarcerated for suspicion of manslaughter. Now, it'll be interesting to see this case go to trial and to actually listen in and see what's being said and what the argument is, because I just do not see an argument for this man going to jail for playing a sport that is inherently dangerous and having something happen like what happened, which again is tragic. But just wanted to tie that loose end for you guys. Now that leads us to the next sporting event, which is that there was a California teen who was suspended following a blackface allegation on the football field for literally wearing eye black. You know, the thing that you've seen every football player almost ever have on their face, was suspended from school and told that he cannot return to his sport because he was wearing blackface. This article, coming from Toronto Sun, says that an 8th grade student of Loyola, California, has reportedly been suspended for allegedly wearing blackface to a local football game. However, a national civil rights group called the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression claims the boy, identified as J.A., was wearing black eye paint to reflect any glare, as many football players do. Because you should. According to the New York Post, the student was photographed on October 13th attending a high school football game between the Loyola High School and Morse High School with dark face paint covering his cheeks and chin. We had a fun, great night without any trouble. This is literally a 13-year-old that wore eye black on his face to a football game and probably put a little bit too, it's so silly. I guess kind of need to see a picture of it to make a real distinction, but it can't be worse than what Justin Trudeau did, literally wearing a turban on his head and wore blackface, acting like, a snake charmer or something. The most racist thing that you'll ever see. If you want to talk about blackface, right? Go look at Justin Trudeau, not some 13-year-old going to a football game wearing paint under his eyes. Like, this is where we've gotten to, where AI is racist and wearing eye black under your 13-year-old's eyes is now blackface. Like, let's find real demons to slay here. I think that's where we've gone as a society now, is like, there's always been eyes in the bushes, right? And our amygdala is constantly surveying our surroundings, looking for something to jump out and attack us. And obviously that's not the case with what we're talking about here. But I think that we've been so conditioned to find problems with our surroundings that now we're in such a cushy, soft environment where very little violence actually occurs, unless you're on the Senate floor next to Bernie Sanders. But very little violence occurs, very little real confrontation occurs, and in a world where that happens, we seek it because we are biologically wired to engage in confrontation, to have real demons, the monsters that have been around for years and years and thousands of years, as we know it, the raping, the pillaging, the war, the this, the that. Now, obviously, war's still going on, and we'll talk about that in our next subject, but in the day-to-day life, people are so removed from real violence. People are so removed from what it meant to be a human 100 years ago, right? And so you have a principal going off of a social media picture, suspending a student for literally wearing sport eye black under his eyes, looking for to make a monster out of a child who literally just went to a football game. It says the First Amendment protects JA's non-disruptive expression of team spirit via style commonly used by athletes and fans, notwithstanding your inaccurate description of it as blackface. Fire calls upon the school to remove the infraction from JA's disciplinary record and lift the ban on his attendance at future athletic events. Terr said JA's appearance emulated the style of eye black worn by many athletes, noting that such use of eye black began as a way to reduce glare during games. which is different from blackface, as is dark makeup worn to mimic the appearance of a black person and especially to mock or ridicule black people. Yeah. There's some horrific actual instances of that. Go look at Howard Stern's old, I don't know what you call it, bit, where he did blackface pretending to be talking to Whoopi Goldberg, I think it was, and he said the actual N-word like 7 times thinking he was being funny. And then the Prime Minister of Canada wearing blackface. I'm pretty sure like multiple times for Halloween. All right. Now, speaking of war, let's go into this transition. Elon Musk was on Lex Fridman's podcast, and during this conversation together, Elon Musk had a really interesting and similar opinion to what I have when it comes to the Israel-Hamas situation, which is what I will play for you here in just a second. But I would say something that I've noticed more recently is that Lex Fridman, his podcast, if you don't listen to his podcast, it's one of my favorites. I definitely think is probably the best, most tactful, well done podcast that is out there today, above even Joe Rogan. You go listen to the podcast with Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. It's not half of as insightful and empathetic and interesting as the conversation that was had with Lex Fridman. So just a side note, but let's listen into this conversation and see what he had to say about the Israel and Hamas war. All right, and here it
Fellow Russian into a horrifying knockout.
Obviously is going to the body, and he wants to do that more tonight. Good, quick left hand shown by Wilder. There's a right hand, drives Lakovic into the ropes.
So, like I said, somehow controversial. You've been a proponent of peace.
A little bit of technical difficulties here. I'm having a problem with my other screen is freezing every single time I go to use the screen. So just give me 1 second here. But while that happens, I'll kind of give you the TLDR of what Elon Musk says, which is essentially that if he had to give advice to Israel in his position today, what would he say to the leadership there? How do you get out of this and have it? Is there a winning side? Is there a possibility to even win this war? And what would you say to Israel in order to come out of this better than you went into it, right? Because they're quickly, as we'll find in the next situation, they're quickly losing favor by the American people. So when that's happening and you're seeing it in real time, them start to have, coming out with propaganda campaigns just today saying that, oh, look, we found these weapon caches in this hospital that we just bombed and raided. It's like, okay, because you could have just as easily planted those weapons to justify your war, which would be one of the least bad things that has ever happened in war as a false flag. But anyways, I digress. Here is this clip, Lex Fridman and Elon Musk. Or maybe it's not because my computer is freezing again. So let's see one last time here, and then we'll move on to the next one if we can't get it here. So we will jump out. We will jump back in and share that screen one last time.
The path to peace could be. How do you hope the current war in Israel and Gaza comes to an end? What path do you see that can minimize human suffering in the long term in that part of the world?
Well, I think that part of the world is definitely like if you look up there is no easy answer in the dictionary. It'll be that like the picture of the Middle East, and Israel especially. So there is no easy answer. Or what this is strictly my opinion of is that the goal of Hamas was to provoke an overreaction from Israel. They obviously do not expect to, have a military victory, but they really wanted to commit the worst atrocities that they could in order to provoke the most aggressive response possible from Israel. and then leverage that aggressive response to rally Muslims worldwide for the cause of Gaza and Palestine, which they have succeeded in doing. So the counterintuitive thing here, I think that the thing that I think should be done, even though it is very difficult, is that I would recommend that Israel engage in the most conspicuous acts of kindness possible. Everything. That is the actual thing that would thwart the goal of Hamas.
So, in some sense, the degree that makes sense in geopolitics, turn the other cheek, implemented.
It's not exactly turn the other cheek, because I do think that there's, I think it is appropriate for Israel to find the Hamas members and, either kill them or incarcerate them. That's something has to be done, because they're just going to keep coming otherwise. But in addition to that, they need to do whatever they can. There's some talk of.
So I do like what he said there, conspicuous acts of kindness, right? And he gets into the philosophical reason as to why he believes that, those conspicuous, obvious acts of kindness that everybody sees should be happening as a way to gain public, I don't know if, what the right word would be there, to gain public popularity. And I don't even know if it's popularity, but acceptance of this war and the acts that they're committing, right? And he's saying that because the way that people are viewing this right now, we're going to find out that almost 70% of people in the U.S. today believe that Israel is going overboard in its reaction against Palestine and Hamas, right? Bombing the safe zones, like hitting ambulances with rockets, and all of these things are war crimes. That's exactly what they are. They're war crimes. And as a established nation state that is a agreed upon nation by all the other countries in the world, you don't get to commit acts of terrorism. And I see constantly people are arguing me, saying that Israel is justified in committing acts of terrorism because they're dealing with terrorists. Well, guess what? You know what that makes you? A terrorist, regardless of your reasoning. Because if you look at Hamas, they have their reasons too. But the way that they act is not within the confines of what's allowable in order for them to be an agreed upon nation, to be a part of the Geneva Convention, to be somebody that is recognized on a world stage, right? That makes you a terrorist organization. Right. And so when everybody says, oh, well, how are you supposed to deal with this? You deal with it with a scalpel, not with Roman candles, right? You didn't see the United States bombing hospitals. You didn't see them bombing ambulances. You didn't see them killing unbelievable amounts of women and children, which, to be fair, is not completely true. There was lots of women and children killed by the United States command during our war in Afghanistan and Iraq, which, again, I totally disagree with. And I have other people going, well, casualties have to be made in war. It's like, to what extent? Or are you just perpetuating sickness and murder and hate that is going to be generational now? Because even if I knew that my grandparent was killed by Israel or whoever, fill in the blank, because they hated them or to in response or revenge for whatever silly act, it's never about the reasoning. It's just about who did what to who when. And if you're related to me or if you kill somebody who's related to me, I will spend my life coming after you, right? I absolutely will dedicate my life to hunting you down, as any sane man and protector should. So you mitigate that by inconspicuous acts of kindness, which I like the way that he phrased that, by showing compassion and showing empathy and showing love for the civilians that are on the other side of this, that are truly the victims of both sides, whether it's Hamas or Palestine or Israel. The Palestinian civilians are literally the worse off of anybody, right? Because they're getting it from Hamas, they're getting it from Israel, and they have nothing to do with either side of it. They're just stuck in the middle. And so he goes on to explain the philosophical reasons why, and I won't ruin it because he will probably explain it maybe the high level better than me, and I might have a little bit to add to it.
So establishing, for example, a mobile hospital, I'd recommend doing that. Just making sure that there's food, water, medical necessities, and just be over the top about it and be very transparent, so that people can't claim it's a trick. Like just put a webcam on the thing, all 24/7.
Deploy acts of kindness.
Yeah, conspicuous acts of kindness that are unequivocal, meaning they can't be somehow, because Hamas will then their response will be, oh, it's a trick. Therefore, you have to counter how is it not a trick.
This ultimately fights the broader force of hatred in the region.
Yes, and I'm not sure who said it. It's an apocryphal saying, but an eye for an eye makes everyone blind. Now that neck of the woods,
Gandhi,
they really,
I
believe in the whole eye for an eye thing. But I mean, you really have, if you're not going to just outright commit genocide, like against an entire people, which obviously would not be acceptable to really shouldn't be acceptable to anyone, then you're going to leave basically a lot of people alive who subsequently, hate Israel. So really the question is like, how, for every Hamas member that you kill, how many did you create?
Mm-hmm.
And if you create more than you killed, you've not succeeded. That's the real situation there. And it's safe to say that if you kill somebody's child in Gaza, you've made at least a few Hamas members who will die just to kill an Israeli. That's the situation. So, but I mean, this is one of the most contentious subjects one could possibly discuss. But I think if the goal ultimately is some sort of long-term peace, one has to look at this from the standpoint of, over time, are there more or fewer terrorists being created?
Which is the perfect depiction of how to approach this properly, right? Is like the end goal isn't, and for some people maybe it is, it's just revenge, right? But the end goal should not be just revenge. The end goal should be the elimination of the faction that is perpetuating acts of terrorism against you. And you saw what happened against ISIS. You saw what happened against all the other terrorist organizations that you've seen pop up over the last 25 years. But it doesn't go away overnight. The guerrilla warfare tactics that they utilize makes it very, very difficult to win a war against a terrorist organization. And so what you find is that for what he said is like, if you kill 5 Hamas members, and for every 5 Hamas members, you kill 3 civilians, right? You can go that shallow in your math. But if you go for every 5 Hamas members, you kill 3 civilians. Of those 3 civilians, you kill 1 woman and 1 children. And of those 1 woman and 1 children, of those civilians that you killed, each of those have a family where you created 6 more Hamas members. So let's do terrorist math. And now you know that you killed 5 Hamas members, but you created 12 of them as a result. So it doesn't work out where you just have this wrath of revenge against the Palestinian and Hamas members and Palestinian civilians, where you come out on this on top, because you're just going to, if there was a ticker of how many Hamas members there are, there's probably more now than there was before you started bombing ambulances. Right? You can't justify those acts. And so when you are committing acts of terrorism in the name of eradicating terrorism, it's a losing game. You're just perpetuating the very thing that you set out to destroy, and you became it yourself in the name of your own righteousness, which is just factually incorrect. You are not the good guy. There is no good guy in this situation. There isn't one. And for anybody who thinks that there's good guys and bad guys, I heard Dave Smith talk about this and say, there's there's Decepticons, and there's and maybe that was I think that maybe that was Elon Musk even, but I've heard there's the Decepticon, and those are the bad guys, and there's the good guys, right? It's just it's a flawed ideology. It's a flawed philosophical understanding of war. There's no good guy here. Neither side is committing acts of terrorism in the name of goodness. They're just killing women and children, and maybe some of the people that they set out to kill to begin with, which you can either argue one way or another whether that's acceptable or not. But if you just want to take it and say an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, yes, because for every eye that you take, there's going to be one. I don't know how am I going to take that reference. There's going to be one that regrows and looks at the other two eyes that are in front of them, and those two eyes know 6 other eyes behind them are watching. I don't know where I was going to take that. But anyways, the idea is the same, right? Perpetuating acts of terrorism to eradicate terrorism does not work. Elon Musk just stated it perfectly, though. And I believe they're absolutely creating more terrorist members as a result of the bombings that are happening in Palestine than they had at the beginning of this war. And it's a losing game, right? So the next thing that they discuss is the woke mind virus, as I mentioned earlier. And I do appreciate this, especially the timing of this, because a lot of people, Lex Friedman asks Elon Musk, how do you feel about becoming do you regret becoming increasingly political in your public appearance over the last, year or so? And he goes, I don't know if I've become political in the same way that I just disagree with the idea of the woke mind virus. So here it is. Here's another very tactful, good conversation between Elon Musk and Lex Friedman. And in true spirit today, it doesn't want to work properly, but here we go, because I'll get it to work. All right, there we go. And here it is. You do have to admit that I have some skill sitting here talking and also running the show and pulling up the clips all simultaneously. A lot of podcasters have guys behind the scenes. Just me and my boy over here, my plastic see-through dog behind me. But, I got some skills. Here we go.
Over the past year or so, since purchasing X, you've become more political. Is there a part of you that regrets that?
Have I?
In this battle to sort of counterweigh the woke that comes from
I guess
San
if you
Francisco.
consider fighting the woke mind virus, which I consider to be a civilizational threat, to be political, then yes.
So basically going into the battleground of politics. I mean, is there a part of you that regrets
Yes,
that?
I don't know if this is necessarily sort of one candidate or another candidate, but it's I'm generally against things that are anti-meritocratic or where there's an attempt to suppress discussion, where even discussing a topic is, not allowed. The woke mind virus is communism rebranded.
Well, I mean, that said, because of that battle against the woke mind virus, you're perceived as being right wing.
If the woke is left, then I suppose that would be true. But I'm not sure. I think there are aspects of the left that are good. I mean, if you're in favor of, the environment, or if you want to have a positive future for humanity, if you believe in empathy for your
So I totally agree with that, and I think that's something I haven't been able to articulate
fellow human beings
as well as he just did there, which is the idea that if being anti-woke and being woke means being left and being anti-woke means being right, then sure, I'm definitely right. I'm not left, right? I do think that, but from an individual level, I disagree with some things on both sides. And I agree with something here and I disagree with something there, and I agree with something on the right and I disagree with some things on the right as well. So it's like, in the sense that there is this and has been this movement towards pushing into or pushing back on this woke mind virus, as he calls it. It's the perfect depiction of this, because I don't think you need to be traditionally conservative or traditionally liberal or traditionally conservative or a Democrat or a Republican to be against all of this woke ideology that's been permeating, from critical race theory to trans agendas to hypersexualization within our school systems to the push for abortion at any late stage, regardless of the age of the baby. There's so much radicalism that is on the left, and I've said this before, and I think it's true. It's like you look at what it means to be far left. They have far more radical opinions than what it means to be far right. Right? To be far right means don't infringe on gun rights, absolutist free speech. A complete ban of abortion. What are more far right things? Like that there's a elite class of people who are generally pedophiles, which we know to be true. Like, what is it that it means to be far right? Because to be far left, it means that gender does not exist. It means that children should be killed in the womb, regardless of what stage they are in development. It means that children should be taught how to give a blowjob in 2nd grade. And it means that, there's far more radical ideologies, right, on the left than there is the right. And that is the woke mind virus. And you see it, it means that if you're white, you're guilty of colonialism and mass genocide, even though we're how many generations removed from that. It means that you should be constantly apologetic for the color of your skin, which is literally just reverse racism. And by the way, let's give the reminder that the Democrats started the KKK and the Republicans abolished slavery. Like that is the truth here. Like, no matter how much you try to whitewash our history, the Democrats were historically the racists, and the Republicans abolished slavery. Like, okay, I just fail to see what is the extremist right side of things that makes a far right person far right. That is the equivalence of what you see being the radical ideologies of the far left. I just don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. And if you think that there's things that I'm being blind to on the far right side of things, tell me what they are, because I would be interested, because it just doesn't equate to the same radical, unfounded truth that you see from, gender theory and critical race theory and all these non-existent, scientifically unproven ways of making you guilty for simply existing. Anyways, I thought that was a really, really good articulation of what it means to you're political. You have to be political by default to be in this battle, right? Because the where it's being fought, the battleground where these things are being pushed is within politics, is within the governmental school systems, is by educators, is within the confines of our tax dollars, right? Everything that we just talked about. Planned Parenthood funded by taxes, gender theory being taught in schools, critical race theory being taught in schools, diversity, equity, inclusion, non-meritocracy based outcomes, equality of outcome. All of those things are being perpetuated through your tax dollars. So by default, in order to get on the battlefield and say, hey, I don't think you should tell a 3rd grader how to give a blowjob, or hey, maybe don't have the coked up man dressed as a woman wearing woman face who, was in a hypersexual culture yesterday, gyrating in front of a crowd for money, reading books to my children. Like, maybe don't do that. I think that's a pretty fair thing. So it's, where you have to fight that is in the political sphere. If I had it my way, I would be talking about more non-political things than political things. But all of the conversations that need to be had are within the confines of politics today, because that's where the battleground is being fought on this mind virus. That is where they are. That is the channel that they've decided to sink their venomous teeth into, to perpetuate their theories and enforcement of such. So you have to get involved at that level in order to be effective. All right. Now, moving on from that, there's some other great clips that came out from some podcasts this week. Another one coming from Dana White and Theo Vaughn. Theo Vaughn is probably the funniest dude ever to live in this history of humanity. This guy, Theo Vaughn, is like by far my favorite personality within this world. The dude's so off the wall. His brain just works different, and everything that comes out of his mouth is just absolutely hilarious. But he did a interview with the UFC's Dana White recently, and they touched on a couple things that I wanted to talk about. The first one being about Bud Light, and the second one being about Donald Trump and sponsorships and, similar conversation to what we just had about this like woke mind virus and the cancel culture that's come as a result of it. So let's go ahead and pull that up, and we will look at it together. Here it is. And this one's about Bud Light.
I know you guys have a new sponsorship. You guys have a new sponsorship with Bud Light, right?
Yep.
But do companies come and do like Shark Tank for you kind of to present the brands?
Kinda.
Or like,
yeah, kind of. So, the UFC's at a point now where, guys come to us and want to pitch their brands or whatever it is to advertise with us. And recently, I've become very involved in the on the sponsorship side. So, I meet with these guys and I just did an interview the other day with the media at the Scrum at Slap, and it's just I'm at a point now where in my life and my career I want to be with people that I'm aligned with, people that
yeah,
it's not just about the money. It's like this whole Bud Light deal. People are talking shit now, sell out and all the shit that they'll fucking say. Believe me, I'm the furthest fucking thing from a sellout.
Yeah.
Bud Light is the right move for me. They're exactly who I want to be with right now. And we are very aligned as far as core values go. You know what I mean? 65,000 Americans they employ.
Yeah.
That right there should be enough. 65,000 Americans are employed there. Why would you want to put a bullet in that brand off of one fucking thing? How about you go back and look at all the good things they've done?
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good point.
And where they really stand and what they really believe in. They take care of veterans. They take care of veterans' families and first responders' families who have fallen. And the list just goes on and on. Almost $1 billion a year with U.S. farmers.
Wow.
That alone is the reason you should be drinking fucking Bud Light.
Yeah.
So I look deeper than just fucking,
right.
They did this fucking can with whoever. I don't give a shit about that. They're showing right now that they're coming with me and they want to be aligned with me.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you that are hardcores, some of you guys are fanatical on this shit. That should be your, you guys think you're all looking for an apology. They ain't going to fucking apologize to you.
Yeah.
So here's my thought on that. So Dana White goes with Theo Vaughn and just says, you guys are blowing this out of proportion, and they employ 65,000 Americans. That alone should make you drink Bud Light. There's a lot of industrialized corporations out there that just because they employ people doesn't automatically mean you should buy their stuff. And by the way, the reason I don't drink Bud Light is because it tastes like shit. But what you have to understand is this was a line in the sand. Right, you have this woke ideology permeating into all of these different subcultures, and they just did it with the wrong brand, and everybody took a stand. And the reason that Dana White did this is not because they're aligned politically. The reason Dana White did this is because he got this sponsorship for ungodly amounts of money and in a section of the hyper masculine culture, which is the MMA and UFC and all of that. That is the perfect play for a smart marketing play on Bud Light, which is probably what they should have done in the first place instead of paying some man wearing woman face to support their brand. This is a smart move by Dana White because they're probably willing to pay ungodly amounts more than they would have to or than they would have had to 2 years ago, right? To be the partner of the UFC. because they've lost all respectability from the general American public. And this is the perfect marketing play. So whoever is the head of marketing at Bud Light at this point, smart move. But Dana White sitting here saying that this isn't about money and we're politically aligned, I just don't buy it. There's no way that Dana White is doing this for any reason other than money. No, you just can't justify that. You can't say that you're aligned politically. Yeah, they've given back to veterans. Okay, like, what does that even look like? And there's a lot of organizations who do that as a tax write-off. Like, there's nothing that you could tell me right now that would have everybody go, oh, you're right, Bud Light. We're going to keep drinking your shitty beer. Because the only reason people bought Bud Light was for the brand, was for the marketing, was for the legacy that was an American brand that has always been traditionally American and held American values. And American values don't hold disintegrating femininity into sexual organs and makeup and hair, right? There is something that went out today. I believe it was by Xavier. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's with PragerU. And what he said was diminishing femininity down to their sexual organs and trying to say that, you can cut your dick off and invert it and all of a sudden you're a woman because you now have an orifice where you shouldn't, doesn't make you a woman. The whole reason that you have that sexual organ to begin with is so that you can create life. It's so much deeper than the surface level that they're trying to make it out to be. So no, there's nothing. I don't think this will work. I think if anything, it's going to hurt the UFC's the non-fanatic UFC people because guess what? The same happened with the NFL. The same happened with the NHL. They all eventually, the pendulum swings back. And so Dana White very well may regret this decision, and maybe he won't because he's probably getting paid a large chunk of money to do this, which is what Dana White is. He's a brilliant, brilliant businessman. And by the way, Dana White looks good right now compared to what he looked like before. Dana White was in rough shape health-wise for a long time. And the way that he was able to turn around, even just the bags under his eyes, the weight that he carried, the age that he looked like it's crazy that Dana White looks about as good as he ever has at this point, even better than what he looked like at 30 when he was running the UFC. And I like Dana White. I think he's a great businessman. I think the UFC is a tremendous organization. It's about the only sport that I actually follow at this stage in my life. And I'm not going to stop watching the UFC over this deal. And I don't think that you should either. But I don't think you can sugarcoat it and tell me it's not about the money, Dana. I don't think that you can do that. I don't agree with you. But anyways, let's finish out this clip, and then we'll go to the next clip, which I definitely agree with Dana White. And again, really love Dana White and what he stands for and who he is as a businessman and the way that he approaches these conversations. Just, you can't convince me that this wasn't about money, Dana. Here we go.
Yeah, fuck that. Just because some risky fella, just because some, and
they had 2,500 influencers that day. They gave everybody their own can.
I know they did. I knew that shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, they just gave a can to everybody. Nobody's paying attention.
Everybody
and plus,
got a can.
If I don't know where I'm at sexually, I could probably use a drink. That's honestly how I feel, dude. That guy's having the toughest day.
Oh, that's fucking
You can't decide
awesome.
what union to fucking be in, bro. That's a fucking issue, dude. That's a big issue to me. But no, I think, look, man, I think it's important. And you know what it makes me think? I don't look and see because we're in a place now where I can choose the advertisers that I want. And I never thought about that before. I never have until just now. And I can look at advertisers and see if they have some of the same beliefs and values that I do.
100%.
And it's important. And that is how you start to build back things the other way.
And it makes it fun. Whoever you are and whatever you believe in, when you align yourself with people, not just the people that work for you and around you, but the sponsors that you're with.
Yeah.
It just makes everything so much more fun. You enjoy your job. You love what you do every day. And there's no bullshit. Nobody's fucking calling you going, hey, don't have fucking Kennedy on your show.
Yeah.
Hey, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Fucking tell me who I'm going to have on my show.
Yeah, go John F. Fuck yourself.
Yeah,
That's what I'll tell him.
There you go. Exactly.
Oh, and that is why Theo Von is the GOAT of comedy. Just the dude the funniest guy in any room that he walks into. And he does jiu-jitsu. I think he trained at Nashville MMA for quite some time with a buddy of mine. And super, one of the nicest guys apparently. And hope one day to have the pleasure of meeting him and having a conversation with him, because he's just the best. Anyways, let's go on to this next clip where they go a little bit, because they alluded to it within that clip where they talk about the fact that you can choose your sponsors. And he was talking about Robert F. Kennedy, and Jr. And they were saying that basically he had some sponsors that called up and decided to cancel their sponsorship with Theo as a result of him having Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on his podcast. And that led to a conversation by Dana White where he said, oh, I've had similar situations where people said that about Trump. And so a great conversation and really interesting to hear them have this discussion. So here is that as I procrastinate until this works. And there it is. All right. Nope, there's not. And there it is. Look at that. Beautiful. All right, here we go.
Kennedy Jr. on, and we had a company call, or a couple companies call after that and say, yeah, just stuff about him. We're not advertising on this episode. My advertiser's like, you guys need to take the episode down, you know? And we ended up.
And what's wrong with him?
Nothing.
Nothing. Guy's fucking brilliant.
And I've known
Guy's
him
a smart fucking
I've
guy.
known him for 7 years. Great guy.
Right.
I mean, a neat man.
Right. I've never met him.
Yeah.
I've only watched his stuff. And you got this whole Democrat, Republican, fucking all this crazy bullshit. He's a fucking Democrat.
Yeah.
Right?
But now they hate him just because he doesn't believe like
He's a Democrat with common sense.
Right. Yeah.
Right? He's like an old school Democrat.
Yeah.
And smart guy, whatever. Let me tell you this. Let me fucking tell you this. This is America. You can fucking have whoever you want on your podcast. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. Imagine a sponsor that's sponsoring you, calling you and telling you that you can't have this guy. What sponsor did it? Who was it?
Let me think. And I'm not afraid to name him. I don't know if I remember. I really don't.
All right. I don't know if I believe you, but okay.
That's fair. But I really don't know if I remember.
Imagine, and this happened to me too. This happened to me. I posted a video for Trump, right, on my personal social media. And one of our big sponsors called and said, take that down. You know what I said? Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
You vote for whoever you want to vote for, and I'll vote for whoever I want to vote for. That's how this works. I don't even care who you're voting for. It's none of my fucking business. But fuck you.
Yeah.
Don't ever fucking call me and tell me who to vote for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel in fear these days, you know? A lot of people feel in fear that if they don't vote for certain people, they're going to lose their jobs. Yeah. I mean, it's Hollywood, for example.
Think about how fucking crazy that is.
It sounds insane. It sounds just like...
Well, it'll keep happening unless more people stand up for themselves. Yeah. And give them the fuck you response.
Well, I'm going to tell my sponsors right now, if you don't like what I fucking have on, I'll tell you exactly what I'll do. I'll end my deals and I'll just sell direct to consumer for a lower price because the people will support you, you know?
Well, listen, man, you can't, it's like this whole Bud Light deal. You know, people are talking shit now, sell out and all this shit that they'll fucking say. Believe me, I'm the furthest fucking thing from a sellout.
Yeah.
So there was that part of it. And so, again, I really like Dana White. I think he's a tremendous businessman. I love that he backs Trump the way that he does, is shameless about it, has him front row sitting next to him with Kid Rock. And it was Kid Rock, Donald Trump, and who was the other guy that was with them? It's going to be so silly if I don't remember it. But it was... I can't believe I don't know who it was, but it was, anyways, these guys are sitting cage side for the fights, and every single fighter, every time they knock somebody out, they jump on the cage and point at Donald Trump because they love him, right? And the UFC fans love Donald Trump, right? It's like, but again, like he said, That's not going to change until people push back, until people in positions of influence push back against these sponsor deals. And Theo Von's right. Why in the world? It's definitely more lucrative for you as a podcaster, right? And this is my play down the road. I don't like at this very moment. I don't have any. I don't put ads in here, and I very well could, and I can make some money off of this, and you know, make more than what I'm making off it right now. But I would much rather give as much value to you guys as possible until I find either a very aligned brands that I believe in, that I want to push, or I create my own products or start to drive traffic from, you know, and eyes onto my own businesses, which is far more lucrative, because the only way that you get advertisers is if the advertisers know that the return on investment is higher than what the amount is that they're paying you for the sponsorship deal. And if that's the case, and there's a positive ROI, why wouldn't you just take that positive ROI as the individual? Because it's much easier for me to tell you guys, hey, this is my product. This is what I create. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this. This is my idea. I want you to show your support for it. Come support me. Go to my website and sign up right now. Than it is to say, hey, guys, here's this company that's paying me to say this thing, right? You guys are going to far more be likely to convert on a campaign or you know, something that I talk to you about that's my own stuff than you would be to even for a sponsorship. But the only reason the sponsor's doing it is because the eyes and conversions on the campaign would be higher than what they spent out, what they gave you for the sponsorship. So he's right. If you have the time, the bandwidth, the ability to outsource some of the work that goes into building that brand and then offer it through your podcast specifically, you're going to make more money than you would with investors anyways, because that's the only, or sponsors anyways, because that's the only reason they're sponsoring you, is because the money that they give you is less than the money that they make back. So he's absolutely right. And that was brilliant to hear from Theo Von, because not too often you get like business insight from Theo, but he's absolutely right. All right, let's see what else we got here. I think we have maybe one more clip here, and maybe not one more clip. Maybe we just have this last article, but let's see what we got. Here we go. All right, so the last thing that we're going to discuss here is going to be, and this will just kind of be a fun one to end this on. So I really randomly came across, you guys have all heard the Interstellar song probably at this point, and I'll even play it for you guys in the background as we close this out. But I thought this was cool, and being a father myself, I seem to, I think it's cool when you find some wisdom that's dropped, or at least people who've put enough pride into that to try to display that through art and what it means to be a father, especially when the entire world is, demasculating what it means to be a man. And what it means to be a man is truly the epitome of a man is a father, is a protector, is a provider. A man sitting at his home by himself cannot reach his full potential when he's not responsible for other individuals that look to him for guidance, for protection, for providing a shelter and food, and having those responsibilities and bearing that weight is what truly makes you a man. I always, this is my take on having children, is that you can't, until you're the father of children or the mother of children, you're always the children of your father or your mother. And that paradigm shift of going from like, and Jordan Peterson talks about this at length, is like that transition from son to father is a truly important one. And he argues that it doesn't truly happen until your father actually passes away. And the reason that he says that is because until then, you can always rely on your father if you ever need that he can still be the overall provider, protector, to you. And I love my father, and he's always there for me, and whenever I need it. So I get that 100%. But I also think that the biggest step is when you have small children and a wife looking to you for direction, looking to you for providing shelter and food and protection and masculine love, right? Masculine love is far different from feminine love. And that's why you see high crime rates in instances where the father leaves the house. That's why you see high or low outcomes for children whose parents are divorced, because the father's usually out of the picture or less in the picture than they would be otherwise, right? So you know, to me, being a father is being the epitome of a man, and to take pride in that, right? And to take pride in providing, to take pride in the traditional role of what it means to be the provider, to be the protector, to be the, you know, all of that. And so here was a number that was written by Hans Zimmer, and this is I believe it's become quite the famous song since. You probably heard it, but if you haven't, I'll play it in the background and I'll tell you the story about this, because I find it to be pretty interesting. And again, my computer wants to give me trouble today, which I haven't had trouble with in a while. But anyways, let's see. All right, so this song was written by Hans Zimmerman, and it's you see it a lot on social media today. It's a very, very highly used musical piece, and there's a lot of like viral videos that have gone of musicians playing this song in a subway, and then somebody walks by and goes, "Hey, can I play the violin next to you?" Like, there's been some really cool viral clips that have shown this, and then this song is just so beautiful. And so there's a story behind this song where Christopher Nolan, who obviously produced Interstellar, the movie, which is a phenomenal movie, but the way that this song came about, and I actually have a little article here that I can pull up about it. And how good is that music in the background as we discuss it? But let's see if I have to. Yeah, I'll pull it up from my phone. So the background behind this song is that Interstellar's theme by Hans Zimmerman. Christopher Nolan asked Hans to write him something based on a letter that he sent, and in the letter, the underlying idea behind what the Interstellar movie was, but he hadn't totally come up with the idea yet. And Christopher Nolan and Hans Zimmerman have a long-standing history together in writing songs for the movies and doing the soundtracks. When you talk about, The Dark Knight by Christopher Nolan and Inception and some of those other things that they've done together. And so Christopher sent over that letter, and the letter was about what it meant to be a father. What the relationship feels like to be a father and to have children and to show them love and try to be the best version of yourself. And so you can truly feel that within the emotion of this song. And he presented this song to Christopher Nolan the very next day. He had him come over to his house and showed him what he wrote and played it for him. And Christopher Nolan, again, yet to have a full picture, vivid idea of what he wanted to write. And from this song, decided, perfect, thank you. Now I need to go write this movie because I know exactly what to make for this movie now. Because he didn't have a vivid picture. All he had was a construct of the idea of what it meant to be a father and to love a child and to be in that position as the protector and the provider. And so now I hope whenever you hear this song, you think of what it means to be a parent and to show that love and be that protector and be that provider. And that is what I will leave you guys with today. So I just thought that was a cool story. And I hope you guys have a great week. And I do have an interview this week that I'm excited to share with you. That is actually tomorrow night. I will be shooting, and it probably will be out for a couple of days. But very excited for this interview, and very excited to continue doing more interviews and experimenting with some different formats. So I hope you guys stick with me. I appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. Chase me down in the bar and harass me if you see me. And until next time, have a great week.
Adams Archive.